All right, guys, I'm joined by Dan Garrett, head coach of the Kean University Cougars. Dan, how you doing today?
I am doing fantastic, catching up with an old buddy who I haven't seen in decades. What better way to be to start a football season and catch up with an old pal?
Full disclosure, Dan and I played high school football together, played a little in college together before my body broke down, and he has continued going, and I'm excited. How long have you been at Kean?
This is my 21st year at the same school.
And how long as a head coach?
This is year 18.
Wow, 18 years. Jesus.
Yeah, tell me about
Unbelievable.
it.
So I'm going to get right into the questions, and we'll see what you got. The first question I wanted to ask is I'm trying to come up with stuff that like maybe listeners would want to hear about that they don't get from like what you normally see on like ESPN or something like that. We're better than them anyway. So I wanted to ask you a question about recruiting. So obviously, you go out there, you're trying to get the best players available, but as a Division III school, you're fighting against D1 schools, D2 schools, whatever, FCS, whatever they call them now. So how do you go about doing it? Do you just target the best possible players, or do you see what trickles down? How do you go about it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think it's such a loaded question in today's world because obviously, Pete, we're older now, right? When we were in school, there was just VHS tape. There was no internet. There was no social media. So like people, they could get lost, right? They maybe didn't get the higher levels because of what I just said. So today's world, man, everyone is social media driven. Everything's out there, camps and ratings and stars and who's competing with who. And, if this kid goes to this camp, you have to put it up there. So, everyone's value is on like a social media platform now.
Right.
So for us, like we target anybody. Like, today I have a kid coming up who's looking at UPenn, like an academically, he's coming to our scrimmage tonight with his mom and dad. And like, he's entertaining some FCS and some Ivy Leagues. And ultimately what we talk about, is it the right fit? And what I mean the right fit, number one, like I'm a dad, right? I'm a dad now, Pete. I got 3 kids. My oldest now is a freshman right now, currently at Monmouth. He's in preseason camp, which is wild. Yeah, dude. And when we talk about the fit, being a Division III school, and if guys don't get that offer, right? They don't get that offer where they can blast on social media and get all that hoopla that comes with that. I want to make sure it's the right fit for him and his family financially. Because we don't offer scholarships because it's a need-based thing. And if your academic merit warrants it, you'll get some academic money. But, first and foremost, you might love Kean. You might love the facilities. You might love Coach Garrett and his staff. But if it doesn't make sense for you and your family financially, like I don't want you coming here because, that bill is real. And that bill, we are more affordable than most schools. But like when you talk about a number of $28,500 as a father, that number is still real. So if you talk to people and the thing where people get really confused at our level, they think, well, if you're an EOF kid, everything gets paid for. That's not true. If you get full EFO grant, that's only about $1,750. And then if you qualify for the EOF program, you're looking at full Pell and full tag somewhere around 16,000. So, maybe you're a little over, 18,000 total. So that's awesome. But if you want to live on campus, right? Like tuition alone is only 13,000. So you're covered. If you live in local and you can drive here, that's all good. But if not, you still got to come up with about $10,000, whether that be loans or some type of payment plan. So the first thing financially is a big deal for us. And the second component, really, after targeting the best of the best, is, hey, man, is this a right fit for you academically? Like, what do you want to study? Like for me, when we back in the day, I thought I wanted to be a teacher. My things changed 1,600 times. Ended up going exercise science. So like, you want to go to a school that has something that's going to be able to open doors for you at the end of it. And not that the college degree is everything, because my dad was a plumber, right? He didn't go to college. He graduated high school, had a great trade. Me and my brother lived well, in Clifton, New Jersey, as you know, and we didn't want for anything. So we just talk about the importance of that passionate academic mode, because most kids want to go for football, right? But if you don't find some type of passion in the academic world, you're not going to stay in college long. So, we talk about the development, so the academic component is more about your development, because if we're able to keep you here as a really good recruit, right? What's good is it to have one good year when you're going to get better and better every year. I need to see you as a senior. So the second component is the academic component. And then third, like football, like, we might want you, but when you come here, like there's no glamour. Like, I am still like real hard on my sleeve. I don't pull any punches. The first thing I say, hey man, if you came here today expecting to get in a jersey and a photo shoot, like this isn't the place for you. So like, and some guys we lose because they really want that. And it's, not everyone gets to be recruited. So we have like Under Armour mannequins. And if you want to take a picture of mom or dad, we have that set up, but we don't do the hoopla that comes with all that. Like, so to me, it's more about substance, not the fluff. Because a lot of guys get caught up in the substance of recruiting. It doesn't mean just because someone's telling you something, it's real. And as soon as they step foot on campus, we talk to the parents and the family about the word trust. and trust is something
huge.
that's
It's everything.
It's everything. And it's a repeated experience over time, right? So as soon as I start my introduction, I say, guys, you don't have to believe anything I tell you. I want you to go back and talk to your high school coaches or some people that you might know who have attended Kean and ask them about, what their experience was like at Kean, because you shouldn't believe a coach. You just got in front of them. There's going to be guys who are real and genuine and sincere, and maybe other guys who maybe aren't so much. So, because trust is a repeated experience over time that can be ruined in one split second. So from the time we meet them, I want it to be a genuine interaction, that when we meet them in November of their senior year, and we talk to them on campus in January, when they come here in August, there's not three different stories being told. It's the same consistent story, the same messaging, all around. So those things are huge in recruiting.
So you mentioned about having some local kids, like maybe they won't have to stay on campus and stuff like that. Do you take pride, or do you kind of look for kind of those hidden gems that might be a little more local? Like, hey, maybe this kid might have something that, some of the bigger schools aren't seeing, or maybe it hasn't even blossomed yet, but damn, it just popped out on the tape, and I kind of want to take a shot at this one.
Yeah.
You ever get to do stuff like that?
All the time, and I really relate that. Number one, I'm a proud Division III product, right? I talk about that. I played Division III, I coached Division III. I only know one other level for a short period of time, 1 year, because I picked the wrong school for the wrong reasons. Right. I fell in love with the recruiting process back in the day with no internet, with no social media, and I picked a Division II school just so I could sign on February 7th and say I'm a Division II scholarship athlete, when that scholarship was $2,500. And this kid from Clifton, New Jersey is going out to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and talk about a whirlwind of change. And the people out there were phenomenal, but it wasn't the right fit for me. I picked it because of a coach. I picked it because of a program, but I didn't think of all the other things that come with that. So I think we do that all the time, because there's plenty of kids at our level who fall because they're not 6'4". Maybe they're 6'2", and they're a lineman. There's kids that fall all the time because they're not a 205-pound tailback, but they're 185, and they run like they're 205. And there's so many intangibles that the highest level looks at, that if you're not X, Y, and Z, like, they're not even recruiting you, right? So I think the biggest thing for us, we just evaluate film. And if that kid, if we think that kid's a really good football player, regardless of the intangibles, what the measurables are.
I always found that fun as a coach. Like, you have a kid who comes out because he's an athlete. This is definitely different because you're looking at football players. Yeah. But I'm kind of relating it to the idea of, like, a kid comes out because he wants to play football, doesn't even know what position he wants to play. But you're looking at him and you're like, there's something there. I gotta find it. I need him here. Like, I want him here. There's something about the kid, and sometimes it might even be attitude, or who knows. So that's why I just think it's really cool when you find
hidden gem
kids like that. Yeah, those hidden gems. So you've been there for over 20 years now, either as a head coach or assistant. There's obviously been so many changes in football. Before we even started this interview, you talked about how you can't even do double sessions anymore, which just blows my mind in college football. But I mean, they're missing out on the struggle. Anyway.
And the struggle was real.
Oh, it was real for sure. Just getting sleep. You wouldn't mind falling asleep in the dead sun, just like anything to close your eyes for a couple minutes.
100%.
But in those years, what's like the biggest change that you've seen or that you've gone through?
Oh, man, it's it would probably be the daily structure of preseason camp. Because when I hate saying it because we sound like our dads, right? When we were back in the day, there was triple sessions. Like, we went through 3 sessions, and then it transformed to double sessions, and it transformed to a double session, and you could follow it with a single session and back to a double session, and now it's just single sessions with a walkthrough. And I think when you say it, the struggle's real. But I think, like football, man, like, you have to go through it. Like, it's one of those sports that if you don't go through it and you don't push through it and you don't learn how to deal with the perseverance that's needed for the fourth quarter, like, it's like life. Like now, life's very easy. Like, and if it's too hard, people just either walk away or quit. Yeah. And like football, if you walk away or quit, you're letting down 99 other guys. And I think that grind, that practice, that double session, wherever it was, would, like anything else in society, right? People ruin it by going too much, right? And that's why we don't have double session anymore, because people were 3-hour practices and they're running for 2 hours.
No water.
But I think part of that, man, is like, you have to go through it in order to build mental toughness and be gritty and learn how to be resilient and learn how to persevere when your body's not feeling comfortable, because football, man, it ain't comfortable. Like, and there's nothing comfortable about football. Not comfortable put a helmet on, not comfortable blocking somebody, not comfortable or natural tackling somebody. And I think that has been the biggest change. Kids are not necessarily weaker. It's just that you're not allowed to go through that process that you were once allowed to go through to build them a little maybe mental toughness.
So how have you adjusted?
Yeah.
Have you added more practice, like start earlier, or
so they have that?
Not what you got. They give you a starting time and that's it.
Yeah, so like hypothetically, we used to start August 17th, August 18th, and your first game would be the first week of September. So now you really have almost 7, 8, 9 more days. And it's great because there's more teaching time. There's a different methodology behind it. Ideally we would like to do, our practices in the morning to get out of the heat, and then we talk about, a little bit of a meeting time to correct. And then we go to a walkthrough again. So now we really slow it down so you teach it, reinforce it, because the only good way to learn, right, is by failing. And when you fail, like the methodology, all right, let's practice it, let's see it, let's walk through it. And then at night meetings, let's reinforce it. So there's definitely been a change in just the methodology too. So, and like anything else, I think anybody in their field that doesn't adapt, adjust, improvise, and overcome, it's time to get out of your field, right? So no matter whether you're in it for 28 years, 50 years, 5 years, like things are constantly in flux. Things are constantly changing, and you better be amenable to adjusting to the change.
That leads perfect to my next question. So like over the last 5 to 10 years or so, maybe a little longer than that, the game has really evolved into more of a passing game. Part of it is just the camps that these high school kids go to that weren't necessarily available before, passing camps, 7-on-7 camps, all that kind of stuff. Part of it is also just the rules, like the way you're allowed to hit people, you can't touch quarterbacks, you can't headhunt wide receivers over the middle like it used to be. So my question to you is like, have you adjusted to that? Like a lot of teams have adjusted, or have you kind of said, you know what, this is what everybody else is doing, we're going to go a little opposite? And I ask that in the sense of like thinking of like a Michigan instead of an Ohio State. Ohio State is more high flying, throw the ball all over the place, where Michigan and Jim Harbaugh has kind of, I'll say, somewhat gone old school, little more, physical, run the ball. What direction have you kind of taken with that?
Yeah, I think
because it's hard if you're, recruiting against other people, you're recruiting the same players, and if you're doing something else, then you're recruiting a whole different set of players. So just curious which direction you've chosen to go.
Yeah, listen, at the end of the day, when it comes back down to recruiting, we're gonna morph and mold our scheme to the personnel that we have. So like in my world, I would love to be able to get a 230-pound fullback and run power, counter, isolation plays, right? But like we had one last year, we don't have one this year. So you're going to see more of an H-back type of hybrid tight end off the ball, moving around to be that guy, which makes you a little more spread. And so I think over the years, as soon as you, like whatever it was now, 8, 9, 10 years ago, when they learned to take the head out of tackling, and you learned about the rugby tackling, like those things are instantly things that we taught. Shoulder tackle and no more down the middle, lead with your head, crown your helmet. Like we don't even use the word helmet anymore in our teaching because it's all about shoulder and leveraging on the lower half of the body in that rugby style. So from the defensive side, we try to always do part the whole technical teaching of the tackling, even when we're not in helmets because the head's never in it. So we teach it in the spring or even in beginning of preseason. We can do it just with a helmet on because it's more of an art than in the olden days where you just, like you said, you're going to headhunt, you're going to try to run just as hard as you can and then put your helmet in his chest, which is not the way you teach it anymore. So, and on offense, it's just like, hey man, what's our personnel and what do we think we're going to be best at? Is it 10 personnel where you got to be 4 wides and use more RPOs, and as opposed to, everyone has RPOs now, but some might do more based on what you have in your philosophy. So I think it goes back to personnel. We reevaluate that every year, after every season, at the end of every spring, and then looking into preseason. All right, what's our best 11, and what do we need to do to have the best chance to win a football game this season with the offense or defense that we have?
Very cool. I like that a lot. I mean, I think some people, hell, you even see it at the NFL level sometimes. Coaches get stuck in, this is what we do. You need to fit into this scheme. That has changed, especially with quarterbacks over the last few years. So, but I love that idea of like, this is who I got. We have to adjust to who we have, not to what we would like to be. I'm sure if we had our druthers and whatever players we can find and get, we would do things differently. But this is who I got, and we're going to do the best. I love that attitude. I think that's kind of like a business attitude too, right? We look at and we say, these are the kind of people we have. This is the kind of work we can do. So
exactly. And every staff meeting, like when I hire new guys, because turnover in Division III is brutal. Like I have great guys now, but we don't pay well. So like there's constant turnover. And almost every year I have to impress upon guys like, hey man, I don't want you to say, hey, this is what we do here to the new guys. Cause we don't do that every year. Like we might be different every year. So I don't want to get stuck in that routine, trying to fit a square peg in a round hole just because, I'm against that. Like we don't do that anything here. Like it's the life expectancy of a team is 1 year.
Love that. Okay, let's talk about this year a little bit. I looked over the last 10 to 15 years of the program in the mid 2010s for a few years there. You guys had some unbelievable success. And then COVID comes, and it's like, you lose the season. It looked like you lost the season totally.
Yep.
And just that must have just blown things up. So you're just working your way back to a successful program. I looked and saw that you guys are ranked 4th in the preseason for the NJAC conference. Tell me about the season, what it looks like, and what you expect.
Yeah, it's pretty, football's a funny thing, man, like, because at the end of the day, coaches get judged, obviously, as you know, based off on wins and losses. I'm very blessed, very fortunate to still be here because it hasn't been a great run the last 3 years. We've been close. Close doesn't count anything but horseshoes and hand grenades. But when we had that COVID season, we had a lot of guys opt out and not come back. So we lost a ton of seniors, and we were very young. Not an excuse. It's just like it's not like you started over, but it was damn near almost like starting over again to build up. And we're finally the last 2 years, last year and this year, I hate using the word veteran because we're not the NFL, but we had more seniors, right? We had more people who were older and been around the game. And 3-7 last year with 4 or 5 plays here or there. You're sitting here and you're a 7-3 team, but because we lost 4 or 5 games by a total of 16 points, like 9-7, 10-0. It was one of those 21-15 2 games in a row. But my point to that, this year, a lot of those guys are back, and they learned and learned a lot about last year, right? Because in the locker room in football, the best thing about last year was not a record. It was the fact that we had 100 guys in the locker room losing close games and no one pointed a finger. So it was a really, really strong bond in that locker room that was created last year during a losing or a rough season. And a lot of guys are back, and a lot of them are returning, and we have a lot of new faces either by transfer portal, a lot of really guys who have fallen through the cracks in Division III recruiting because of extra years of COVID year, transfer portal. Like a lot of people now are falling down to our level when in years ago, I probably wouldn't be talking to some of these kids.
Right.
We were able to have a 6'10" kid on the line here. We got a kid who's a running back who I think is an FCS kid. And 5-6 years ago, we're not talking to those kids, but there's no room for these guys now. So it's very selective. So I really like what we have. We got a great group, man. We're over 2 weeks in camp, give or take about day 18. And the chemistry is phenomenal. They're learning that it's not about necessarily talent. It's about playing for the guy next to you, loving the guy to the right and to the left of you because they're counting on you to do a job and you got to do your job for them. So I really like what we got. We'll see tonight. We have a game scrimmage versus Widener, who's a really tough opponent from outside of Philadelphia. They're coming up here for 6:30. And it'll be a good litmus test. And we'll see where we are actually on the football field as far as our abilities. But we have everything that we need to be successful. But the thing that's not talked about enough in sports is that love for one another that is really deeper than talent.
Before I let you go, everybody loves a quarterback. So tell me a little bit about your quarterback this year.
Yeah, our quarterback, it's really funny. He transferred here last year. He's an Ocean Township kid. I live in Ocean Township. I saw him play when my son was a freshman. Just a competitor, tough kid, athletic kid, built like a Mike linebacker, so to speak, physical presence, got a great arm. Can run the football, can run a lot of the RPO successfully. Went away to a Division II school, didn't like it up there, came home, and obviously during COVID and all the other things that were happening, transferred to us. He's got this year now with a year under his belt, and he's got one more year left. Not necessarily a vocal leader, but his actions speak louder than words. He's a hard worker. He's a go-get it type of guy. He delivers the ball. He's smart. His football IQ is extremely high. But he's also a great dude, and there's no ego, because the 3 things I say that can screw up a team all the time are, egos, playing time, and stat guys. Those things can destroy a locker room, and he's not that. And so when one of your best football players, if not your best football player, is that humble, hardworking, gritty type of dude, you got a shot to win. Because when you don't have one of them, it's like having a basketball team without a point guard or having a baseball team without, 4 starting pitchers,
Yep.
So we feel really, really good. We're very, very confident in his abilities, and we're going to go as far as we go with him.
Very good, Coach. Coach, I appreciate you joining us today. We're going to keep an eye on you. Hopefully we can talk to you later in the season. Tell everybody when your first game is.
We open up September 2nd at Kean University at 1 p.m. kickoff versus Morrisville, and most people on social media know Morrisville now because they're the team with the black turf. We're not going up there. They're coming down here.
All right, Coach. Thank you very much. And again, hopefully we'll talk to you later in the season.
Absolutely, Pete, man. Great catching up with you, brother.
Absolutely. Thanks, man. Talk to you later.
Yeah, you got it.